beautiful beaders, it's Gina from orchidandopal.com, and on today's bead weaving basics video, we're going to talk a little bit about prismatic right angle weave, also known as PRAW or PRAW. And if you have already seen the videos that I did on the raw stitch or the cross stitch, and you've played around a little bit with that, you're probably ready to move on to the next step, which is PRAW, prismatic. So the basis of the PRAW stitch is actually in its name, the word prism. So what do we know from geometry? Prisms are three-dimensional shapes. They have flat faces, and the top and the bottom of the shape are the same. So technically cubes are a prism. If you've already done cubic right angle weave, you've actually done prismatic right angle weave. Cubic is very specific to the four-sided unit, as you can see here. However, you can do prismatic right angle weave in technically an unlimited number of sides. So you can see here I have prismatic done in 3 sides, 4 sides, 5 sides, and 6 sides. And the more sides that you decide to do, basically the wider your rope is going to be. Also note how the holes of the prismatic get wider the more sides that you decide to do, which also means that if you did decide to go with, say, more than 6 sides, you're going to lose some of the integrity of that round shape. It's going to start to collapse a little bit, and you would need to have something probably inside for it to keep that tube shape and not just flatten out on itself. So these are 4 examples done in the 3mm fire polish beads. If you're newer to bead weaving and trying out these right angle weave type stitches, I definitely recommend going with a larger bead like a 3 or 4mm fire polish to start out, as opposed to starting out on seed beads. It makes it a little bit easier to navigate and to get used to the stitch. And the fire polish fit so well together. They sit really nicely when you're practicing the stitch. And then I would say move on down to seed beads like your size 11. So this is an example of a necklace that I have done, that I've shared, where the rope is actually done in prismatic right angle weave. And this is the 5-sided prismatic or pentagon or pentagonal shape. And it makes a very beautiful rope with the 11-0 seed beads. So that's an example of how the size can vary depending on what size beads you go with. These are both 5-sided units. The one here is just obviously done in larger beads. So just like we talked about in the cubic right angle weave video, this is a great stitch to use when you want to make a rope or say a beaded bead. It makes a tube shape. It's got a hole in the center that can get larger or smaller depending on the amount of sides and the size beads that you decide to use. And they're formed by stacking these prisms right on top of each other. So think of these as little apartments or rooms stacked on top of each other. You're going to go one room at a time and continue to build up from there. My other suggestions on materials, if you're getting started today, would be to use some very sturdy beading thread like a 6-pound Fireline. I'll be using a size 10 beading needle to demonstrate this. And also 2 different colors. That way it will be more clear for you to see where to go from step to step. So I will leave links to products down below, such as the 3 or 4mm fire polish, that Fireline thread and beading needles, those types of things that I recommend. We're not going to make a full piece today. I'm just demonstrating the stitch. So I have about 2 feet of thread on the needle that I'm going to be using today. And I'm going to be using 2 different colors of 3mm fire polish beads. And we're going to do a 5-sided prismatic because it seems like the next logical step since we've already done this version with 4, which is the cubic variety. So go ahead and string your beading needle if you're going to play around with this with me, and we will get started. So the first thing you want to do is determine how many sides you want to make your prismatic, and decide if you're going to be alternating colors or doing all one color or whatever you want to do. And if you are alternating like I am today, I'm going to differentiate between what we are considering a floor and ceiling, which you can see in these blue beads, and then the walls of our prismatic, which are in these green beads. So every good building starts out with a foundation. Let's create our foundation just like we see here in the blue, and I'm going to make that with these turquoise colored beads. And this is where you want to know how many sides you want your prismatic to be. Since we're doing 5 today, I'll be stringing on 5 to make our foundation. So I'm picking up 5 of these beads, just like that, and I'm going to pull them down. If you'd like to use a stop bead, you are more than welcome to. I'm just going to leave a little tail thread, and what we're gonna do, just like we did with cubic, is we're going to swing our needle back around and go through all of these beads one more time. And we want to form a loop. You can see it doesn't close the loop. We still need to go through one more bead. So go through another one past where you started, and you have a loop of 5 beads, or however many beads you're using, depending on how many sides you want. Since we're just practicing here today, I'm gonna make a little half hitch knot right in this corner of these 2 beads. That way it will keep the foundation in place without me having to put on a stop bead. I'm also gonna continue through one more bead, and that's just to work away from that tail thread just a little bit. So this is the foundation of your very bottom of your rope and the foundation of your first unit. Now we need to make our walls and the ceiling of this 5-sided unit. And we're gonna do that by going around one of these beads at a time. Let's construct our first side and ceiling portion by picking up one of our other color, which is gonna be a wall. We're going to pick up one of our ceiling color, which is going to form the top of this unit. And then we need one more wall. When we swing our needle back through the bead that we're currently exiting, just like that, and pull, we have one side in place and the top of our ceiling is getting started. Now we need to move through the next floor bead. So go through one more. And this time you only need to pick up one wall and one ceiling bead. And that's because you already have a wall bead in place. Right here, this next side is going to share this wall with the previous side. So I have these 2 beads on my needle, and I'm gonna go down through that wall bead that they're gonna be sharing. And this is what I have so far. I need to go through the floor bead of that side, and then we need to position ourselves in place for our next wall. So we need to go through one more floor bead and repeat what we just did. So basically we have something like this. Now we need to pick up the same sequence that we had done before. So a wall bead and a ceiling bead, and then go down the wall bead that will be shared by this new side, go through the floor bead, and then go through one more floor bead to position yourself in place to construct your 4th wall. Repeat what you just did, pick up a wall bead and a ceiling bead, and go down the wall bead that is going to be shared by this new side. Pull, and you can see you have 4 sides of this unit done. You still have one open side. So position yourself by going through that floor bead again, as well as the next floor bead. So you're doing a little turn as well, so that open spot is facing you, and pull. And this is what we have so far. So we have 4 sides in place, and we have an opening here where we need to add one more ceiling bead on the top here, which is also going to complete this side, our 5th side. So we're gonna head up the wall to get into position to add that final bead, pick up that ceiling bead, and go down through the wall to complete that side. Now let's continue by going through the floor. And just like you do in right angle weave, you keep making passes through your beads, following the thread path at an angle. So we're going up the other wall, and we're gonna go through the ceiling bead on the left to get ourselves up to the top of our unit. So this is one unit of prismatic right angle weave with 5 sides. You can see that we have our turquoise floor and our turquoise ceiling in place of this prism. The key is that you want to have your 5 beads there on the top, and you want to have your 5 beads there on the bottom. Just like we did in cubic, you can choose to reinforce this ring of beads on the ceiling of your prism by going through all of those beads around the top. Since this is our first unit, we definitely want to try to keep that strong because it's going to be the foundation of our rope. So it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and go around all of those beads there at the top to pull this together. So just like most things, the hardest part is just getting started. Once you've gotten to this point, things are a lot easier because you already have a foundation in place and you're just continuing with the same steps, building on top of these units. So once you have something like this, you have one unit done and you want to build on top of that, let's build one more unit together, which is going to be essentially the same thing. So again, we're going to start out by picking up 3 beads, a wall, a ceiling, and a wall. We're going to go back through the bead that we're currently exiting. And that is the first wall of our next unit. Again, we're building upwards. And the ceiling of our previous prism now becomes the floor of our next unit in that turquoise color. So I'm just turning this a little bit and going through the next, what is now our floor bead. And I'm going to pick up a wall and a ceiling and go down through the wall that we previously put in place that is going to be shared. And there we have our next unit. We need to go through that floor bead and continue working around this shape and go through one more floor bead to get ourselves in position to add our next side. So now we can repeat again, picking up a wall bead and a ceiling bead, going down through the wall bead from the previous step, going through the floor, going through one more floor bead to get ready for our 4th wall. Let's pick up another wall bead and another ceiling bead, go down through the wall from before and go through the floor and go through the next floor. Now we have 4 beads in place there on the top, our new ceiling. We need a 5th one there, of course, and we need to finish off this side. So we want to go up the side that's already in place, pick up 1 ceiling bead, and head back down the other side, popping that last or 5th ceiling bead in place there, completing our next prismatic unit. And now we need to follow our thread path to get back to the top. So I'm going through the floor, I'm going up through that next wall bead, and I'm going through the next ceiling bead. And again, if you want to, you can go through all 5 of these beads here at the top to strengthen your prismatic unit. If you feel like you want a tighter tension on your unit, then definitely go ahead and go through these and it will tighten it up a little bit. Otherwise, you can just keep going and add on another prismatic unit. So those are the motions slowed down. I'm going to do one just more in kind of a real-time pace with you while we're talking, and I'm just going to demonstrate this step done all together, and you can keep going or go back in the video if you need to refresh on what to do. But basically, in conclusion for this bead weaving basic video on the PRAW stitch, as with everything, it's going to take some practice and patience, so don't beat yourself up if you have to take your work apart and restart. Everyone makes mistakes, I certainly do, and part of that is just the process of learning. And the good thing about beads is that in most cases, they are still going to be good to use, even if you have to take it apart and start all over again. So I hope this demonstration and information was helpful for you on the prismatic right angle weave. I will be coming back very soon to do the full tutorial on that beautiful red bracelet that I had shown you with that fancy cut stone. So now that you know how to do prismatic right angle weave in its basic form, you'll be better prepared for how that is done with smaller seed beads. Once again, I will leave links to products that I recommend down below the video, and I will also leave a link to a blog post where I will have more of this information and also some diagrams if you think it might be a little bit easier for you to learn that way. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today for this demonstration of prismatic right angle weave. I hope it was easy for you to follow and understand. Please feel free to leave me a comment down below. I always love to hear from you. Until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you're staying healthy and safe. And as always, happy beading. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. For more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of my latest videos. You can check out the information section below this video for links to all my social media handles, recommended products, and my shop and blog at orchidandopal.com. Thanks for watching.